He looked into my suitcase before I went on a business trip with my boss and found this. Hello, Reddit guys. I feel so strange that I am here writing my story because I never thought I would. I always judged people for writing their very personal stories of their lives, but look at me now, writing the story of how I cheated on my husband with my boss and how he destroyed my life. Let me introduce myself. I am Sarah and I am 30 years old. I was married to Ethan, who was the same age as me. Ethan was my soulmate. That's what I thought. He was the reason why I believed in love at first sight. From the first time I saw him, I felt the connection and the vibe between us. Honestly, I felt in a way I have never felt about anyone before. I met Ethan in a quaint bookstore in the heart of the city. I used to go there often because I love books. Books had always been my escape. It's like you can live in another world, actually in different worlds at the same time, while you are here in this world. Well, it seemed to me like Ethan loved books there. The first time I saw him, we didn't speak, but we stared at each other, and I also caught him looking at me secretly. But we didn't exchange even a word. The second time I saw him there, we were both looking for the same book from Hemingway, a classic Hemingway novel. Ethan was charming, very kind, and thoughtful, and he was the kind of man that could make a girl feel like she was the center of the universe. I can still remember that day, like it happened yesterday. It was a rainy afternoon. I went to the bookstore because it was the place where I would always go to escape. And while I was about to take the book, The Sun Also Rises from Hemingway, someone else tried to take it at the same time as me. Our fingers brushed. So I turned and looked up, and what I saw was an amazing view. The same guy who had caught my attention before, a broad-shouldered, tall guy with green eyes and black hair and the brightest smile. "Looks like you have good taste," he said with a soft chuckle, and then he released his hand to let me take the book. "No, you can take the book," I replied with a sweet smile on my face. To be honest, I had already read that book a dozen times. Then he, as a smart and sharp man, said, "Really? Then maybe you can tell me if it is worth my first read." It was so easy to talk to him. It felt like I knew him forever, like had always been a part of my life. So the conversation flowed effortlessly. There was nothing forced between us. We sat in the cafe corner of the bookstore, sipping lattes and talking about everything from our favorite books to our dreams. Strange, isn't it? How a stranger becomes the most important part of your life, like it became for me, Ethan. That day I found out that Ethan was an architect. He was passionate about designing sustainable homes. I also shared my dream to be able to leave my mark in the corporate world. To be honest, at that time I didn't really know what it meant. But what struck me the most about Ethan was not his attractiveness. It was his attentiveness. He was a detail-oriented person, and he knew how to treat a woman. It was not just about that, but he knew how to listen. He wasn't just listening to what I said. He was absorbing every word I said while he was asking thoughtful questions, genuinely seeming to care about my answers. He made me feel seen in a way I had never felt before. Before leaving the bookstore, he asked for my number, and of course I didn't think twice before I gave it to him. That night, as I lay in bed, I kept replaying our conversation in my head, and for the first time in a long time, I felt certainty. We started talking a lot and dating. Our relationship was full of laughter, late-night calls, and romantic dates. Ethan was a man of gesture, and he always surprised me with small details, like notes tucked in my purse, a surprise picnic in my favorite park, etc. After a few months in the relationship, I told Ethan about my parents' divorce, and I also said that I never wanted us to end up like them. Strange how I destroyed our marriage and we ended up worse than them. When he told me that we could write our own story and he was not like them, I knew he was the one. He was special, and I was lucky to have him in my life. We dated for 2 years, then we got married. Our life was like a dream and a fairy tale. He was always attentive and taking care of me. You may be asking why I cheated on him. He was perfect. Why did I cheat on him? Life has a strange way to draw you on this way you never thought you would go. That's what happened to me. So yeah, this is how we met. And now get comfortable, guys, because I am about to tell you the biggest mistake I have ever made. I am about to tell you how I lost my husband and how I destroyed my own life. Like I said before, Ethan worked as a freelance architect. which allowed him to stay close to home. On the other hand, I was a corporate communications manager at a marketing firm, and I was climbing the ranks faster than I had expected. I had been promoted from an executive assistant to a CEO, and that had been my blessing and my curse at the same time. It was then when I met my boss, whose name was Brandon. He was the epitome of confidence and power, at least in my eyes. He had an aura that drew people in. He commanded rooms and exuded authority. Back in time when I started working there, our relationship was strictly professional. I just admired his ambition, and I tried to learn from him since he was very professional and very good at his job. I wanted to be like him. He was an inspiration to me. His nature was assertive. It actually contrasted with Ethan's nature, which was a quieter demeanor. I don't know what happened or how it happened, but my admiration and inspiration for him turned into late-night meetings, private conversations, and a connection that grew day by day until I could not resist it anymore. Having an affair with him was not my plan. It unfolded slowly, like a spark turning into a flame. That is what happened with the two of us. When I started working there, Brandon was the CEO of the firm. He seemed to me like everything Ethan was not: assertive, ambitious, commanding, and magnetic. While Ethan was being attentive, he felt like a soft and warm blanket, while Brendan was also attentive. But his attention felt like fire, exhilarating but dangerous at the same time. It felt like he made me feel alive and experience some kind of emotions that I had forgotten. While with Brandon, things got a little distant. I don't know why. Maybe this feels like a cliche, but he was really just working. He forgot about those details and small surprises he always used to prepare for me. Now he was not doing anything, not even a small thing. Even when he was home, he was always working, and it felt like we had lost the spark and the emotions between us. I was stupid, and I didn't communicate with my husband. I didn't try for our marriage, for the one I lived with and who had always been there for me every time I needed him. Sometimes he even forgot to take care of me and be a good husband and partner. And here I was cheating on him as a reward for his kindness and love. I know you will judge me, and I am used to it now. But please don't go hard on me because I already have a lot on my plate, and I'm here because I have no other place to go to speak about how I feel. Anyway, let's get back to the story. When I got promoted as brand executive assistant, I knew it meant more alone time with him. I was going to be with him for long hours, and I was going to have direct access to him. At that time, I thought it was a great thing, but time would show it wasn't. While I was promoting this position, I was aware of his confidence and decisiveness. I knew he was that kind of leader that could feel the room just by walking in. Firstly, those were the things that I admired from him, but it was only a professional admiration. Working with him felt like it would help me grow a lot professionally. I felt so lucky, but honestly, I deserved to be promoted because I had worked really hard, and finally Brandon believed I was capable of doing big things for the firm. Later on, my admiration for him turned into a personal thing, and we got involved romantically. During this time, I noticed I had been talking a lot about my boss at home, and Ethan started getting a little jealous. My husband had never been a jealous type, but seemed like I was overstepping him. It was not a smart thing, but my admiration for him was so obvious. I always used to tell my husband about his successes and about his reputation. I used to tell him how good he was, and I got excited when I told about him. One night, while telling him about this meeting where Brandon shined like always, he said, "Why do your eyes sparkle when you talk about him?" I was shocked. Did my eyes really shine? Well, I knew I talked a lot about him, but I didn't know about my shining eyes, so I told him. "I just admire how professional and good at his job Brandon is. I hope one day I can walk in his steps." He just looked at me and stopped talking. I noticed how he was getting more and more jealous every day, and he started asking questions, but during this time our relationship was strictly professional. There was nothing between the two of us. Our romantic relationship started later on with small things. It started with his lingering glances during meetings, then the way he leaned a little too close when we were working together on different projects, and also with his occasional compliments that felt mostly out of place. But those compliments and the way he treated me made me feel like I was special because Brandon was not a type that would compliment anyone. One night, while we were working late, he said, Sarah, I think that you are wasted in this role. You are worth more than this, and you are capable of a lot more than this. You have got much more potential than this." I felt delighted, and I blushed. It felt like I was about to fly, and I really was capable of great things. Besides, no one had spoken that way to me before, not even Ethan. And I mean it. That was such a happy night. I repeated those words a dozen times in my mind, and I could not sleep because of the excitement. I felt like a teenager, and I could not wait to go back to work. Work became my favorite place to go, but this was not the turning point. The exact turning point came after a really stressful day. We had just closed a major deal, and Brandon decided to take the team for dinner. Actually, he insisted on taking us for dinner. As the night went on, everyone started leaving until it was just the two of us left, Brandon and me. And while Jay was trying to find the words to say something to him, he said, "You are amazing, you know that, right?" I replied and explained to him how I was just doing my job and it was nothing special, but then he continued telling that this was not just about the work. He told me I was special, smart, and unforgettable. My heart started beating faster, and in that moment I had the choice, guys. I could just excuse myself and go home to my husband, but instead I didn't. I decided to stay there and listen to his sweet words while I was getting lost in his eyes. That was the first mistake. That night nothing happened. I mean, nothing physical happened, but there was this bond that had been created between us, and we knew that our relationship was not only professional anymore, we had crossed the line, and it was only about time to get a physical relationship as well. When I went home that night, and my husband asked me how it went, I didn't give him any more details. It felt this time like I had things to hide, but I also was feeling like he could read my eyes and like he knew I had some feelings about my boss. I tried not to look into his eyes. Maybe this way he could not understand. So yeah, I continued going back to work, and my boss started flirting with me every day and more. One evening, after we had had a long day at one of our clients' offices, he offered to take me home. I hesitated firstly because I knew this was a very bad idea, but then, deep down inside of me, I wanted him to take me home, and after he insisted for a while, I accepted. So I agreed for him to take me home. When we were alone in the car, the tension was in the air, and we both felt it. While he pulled off under my apartment, his hand touched mine, and he looked into my eyes and told me, "Tell me you don't feel this. Tell me you don't feel the same way as me." I didn't answer because I didn't know what to say, but I let him touch my hand, and I didn't put it away, so I was thinking it was kind of a sign, wasn't it? Maybe he felt it because he kissed my lips right away. It was an electric kiss. This kiss ignited something in me I had not felt for years. I felt desired and wanted in a thrilling new way, which I knew very well was wrong, but I could not give up on it. I wanted it to happen so badly. I desired my boss. There was this flame inside of me that I could not tame. I really feel so ashamed to tell all of you this, but I am here to be honest, and I will tell no more lies. After I got out of his car, I understood how dangerous it was to let him kiss me under my house. What if Ethan saw us? I hoped he didn't. Anyway, after that night, our affair escalated very quickly. We started meeting in hotels, in his apartment, or in mine when I was alone, under the guise of out-of-town meetings. We even had sex at his office sometimes. To me, the best sex was that one in the office because it had so much adrenaline inside. It was strange how I didn't feel any fear, just the adrenaline and the great pleasure he gave me. I knew I was doing something wrong, but still I could not stop myself from doing it. He would make me feel a kind of excitement I had never felt before, while he would leave love and sweet notes in my planner, or sometimes he would brush against my arm during office gatherings. Those small details sent shivers down my spine. The fact that all of that was a secret only grew the excitement inside of me, and made me want him more. But also I was feeling very guilty all the time because of what I was doing to my husband. I knew he didn't deserve that because he was a great man and a good husband. I could not help but feel guilty in this situation. Every time the sense of guilt became stronger, I lied to myself, telling myself that this thing with my boss was something momentary and I would give up on it. It was just an escape for the moment, and it would end soon. I thought of it just like an adventure to escape from the monotony of my reality. To me, Brandon felt the void that was created from my relationship with my husband. So they provided the thrill, the passion, and the sense of being desired like I had never felt before. But anyway, the days passed and turned into weeks, as weeks turned into months. And our affair was still going on the same. It didn't end. Instead, it became more intense. See, in the office, it became more frequent. Our meetings became more frequent as well. We also started going on trips, just the two of us, telling my husband I was going on a work trip. But you know a secret can never be a secret, and at a point he was going to find out, let alone that I was not being careful anymore. At our work, almost everyone started noticing there was something more between us. And meanwhile, I could not ignore the sense of guilt growing inside of me. As days passed, every time I started feeling more guilty when Ethan kissed me, or when he tried coming next to me, or when he wanted to have sex with me. Over the months that followed, I could not shake off the guilt that gnawed at me. Each time Ethan kissed me goodnight, each romantic home-cooked meal, the feeling of being a double agent settled in. Yet, I didn't stop. The promise of Brandon, and the version of myself I had become when I was with him, proved to be too intoxicating to let go. What I didn't know was that every lie, every stolen moment, was leading me inevitably towards the fallout, the moment when Ethan would figure out the truth and bubble up the life we'd built together. That would destroy my marriage, but not just my marriage, also my life, because Ethan was going to ruin my life. He was going to take his revenge, and it was going to be destructive. During our affair, I thought we were being careful. But, as I mentioned before, with the time I started being careless, I thought my husband trusted me with his life. It all happened when I was about to get ready for a business trip. It was a conference meeting that would last just one day, but since we were together, more time out of town meant more time together, and we didn't have to hide there, so we decided to stay there 5 days. Can you imagine 5 days as a normal couple? I was feeling so happy. As I was thinking about Brendan and I was preparing my suitcase, I was feeling happy, but still I had this sense of guilt. I was cheating on my husband, who was lovely and caring. It was too late because I was not able to give it up anymore. I also was wondering if Brendan felt any time the same as me. I mean, did he ever feel guilty about cheating on his wife? His wife, Rebecca, seemed to be the perfect picture of poise and elegance. She was also a very successful philanthropist. I had mentioned her sometimes in our conversation, and Brendan always told me that she didn't understand him like I did. But he never mentioned divorcing her for me, so maybe what he said was not true. When Rebecca found out about our affair, she decided to spread the truth with every detail of it, so she also was a part of the revenge. But let's tell things in steps. So I was preparing my suitcase as my husband offered to help. I didn't want him to help because he could find something in the suitcase. I had put there some lingerie that would make Brendan feel very special. If my husband would find them, sure, I would not go on that business trip. Little did I know that he had found something more important already, and he was just planning his revenge. Anyway, he insisted on helping me. He was sitting in the bed while he was watching me preparing. I didn't notice any change in his behavior, but when I was getting out of the bathroom, I found him watching it on my laptop. I got anxious because there were many proofs of me and Ethan together in our affair, such as pictures and email conversations. They were all intimate and flirty. He knew, but he didn't prevent me from going. He knew because he opened my suitcase while I was in the house and found my red-hot lingerie, and in a pocket found a hotel receipt that I had forgotten there. Little did I know that he was coming after us. He was being like a private investigator, and he was just collecting proof of my affair. He looked into my suitcase before I went on a business trip with my boss and found these things: hot, sexy lingerie and a hotel receipt, and he was coming after me for his revenge. Ethan's revenge was going to be as devastating as the betrayal he had found out, and he was going to make me feel the same way he had felt. And as I went through it, I never thought that Ethan was able to do such cruelty. Maybe it made sense he was always calm and calculated, but I thought I turned him into this new person by cheating on him. I know now how hard it can be, and I know how he felt, but I couldn't change anything. What is done is done. 2 families were destroyed because of our affair, and even if we knew it could have happened because nothing stays a secret forever, it didn't stop us. Our affair became just more intense and more passionate. We never thought of quitting it until it was all revealed, and it was too late because revenge happened. His revenge started when I came back, when the two of us came back. During this time, as I found out later, he had gathered screenshots, pictures of us together, and also hotel receipts. He came after us and took pictures of us kissing or holding hands, and of course he found out that the conference was just one day. I don't know how he could be so calculating and so calm. How could he go on knowing that I was there cheating with someone? He did worse than confronting me. His revenge came slowly and step by step. So yeah, when I came back, and one day I was in a supermarket, I went to pay for some things I had taken, and the cashier said my card didn't work. I called my husband, and he said he was sorry, but he used the money in our joint bank account for a project he had, and he didn't have the time to tell me because I was out of town. I was shocked. How could he do that? I started feeling suspicious, but still I never thought he could know anything about my affair because to me, he would have confronted me. It would not take so long, but this was just the beginning of his revenge. The next step in his revenge was even more severe. I went to work in the morning and I found out that an anonymous email had been sent to everyone in our company with the evidence of my affair with our boss. I was devastated. Who did that? I didn't think of my husband first, but then it was clear it was him. Everyone was looking at me in a bad way, and sure, everyone thought that my promotions came because I was his lover. I could not stay there, and Brendan fired me. He told me that he was sorry he could help me with money, but I could not work there anymore. I didn't want his money, and I told him so. I went away. Since everyone knew maybe his wife had found out too, I was not wrong. She had received an email like everyone else letting her know what kind of a man her husband was. She immediately filled out the divorce papers and cited infidelity and betrayal as the reasons for the divorce. She made Brendan's life hard. Brendan lost many clients because of her. Rebecca destroyed Brendan's career by talking to every client of his. While I went home, I found all my things packed at the door. I started crying. I called for Ethan, but he was not there. Instead, I found a note from him saying, "Cheaters are not allowed here anymore." So he never actually confronted me. He just took his revenge. I took my things, and I went to my best friend's house, since my parents lived in another city. I rang the doorbell, but she opened it, and she looked so mad at me. This was the next blow of Ethan's revenge. He had talked to almost all my friends and confided in them how sad he was because I cheated on him. He told them the story, and he was the victim. I was the bad person. I truly was. My best friend told me she could not support me this time, and she needed time. She could not be friends with a person like that. Actually, she was the person that mostly believed in our love. To her, we were the perfect couple, so when Ethan confided in her, she could not believe that I had done that to the man of my life. She told me Ethan didn't deserve that and that I was cruel. So yeah, in a day I lost my job, my best friend, and I was about to find out that my social life was totally destroyed. I tried contacting my other friends, but they all disappeared. Ethan had talked to all of them and made sure that I didn't have any friends or any social life. The only friends that remained were there because they felt pity for me, and so I was left all alone. That's the main reason why I am here. I have none to turn to. My life is a total mess. The next step of Ethan's revenge was writing the story of my affair into a blog. He wrote it in detail. He even added our names and our pictures. He destroyed my reputation and my public figure. After that, I moved into a small apartment away from the city center, and I started looking for a job. Ethan had not ended his revenge there, because every time I was able to get a job interview, they would find out about the relationship with my boss and not hire me. I knew it was Ethan. He was the one that was destroying everything. So this was his revenge, which is still affecting my life. I never thought Ethan could be so cruel and so calculating, but he was. I know he was right. I deserved everything that he did. Finally, I lost everything that I had. He made sure that I knew how it felt to be stabbed in the back. And also I understood how every action has its own consequences. Now I am suffering the consequences of my own decisions and actions. This is the way life works. This is my story. Thank you, everyone, for taking the time to read my story. I hope I will not be judged too much. I am already going through a lot. Stay safe, Sarah. Update. Hello, Reddit guys. I am back for a short update. I have been reading the comments, many of you judging, and I would do the same if I were in your place. I have already done the same with some stories I have read here before, but here I am myself. So yeah, as a part of his revenge, Ethan and I got divorced. I have not heard about him anymore. I just hope that when I will be able to get a work interview, he won't be there anymore, disturbing me and telling me what I have done to him. I did what I did, and I really regret it, but it would not stop him from taking his revenge. Regarding Brendan, I never knew he was such a lesser man. He disappeared. As soon as his wife and Ethan destroyed our reputation, he got the money, and he was able to go far away where those words would not affect him. So yeah, he totally disappeared, never called me and never asked if I needed anything. To him, I was just a sex toy that he used, and when he didn't need it anymore, threw it away. This was it. I was thankful to Ethan just because he didn't tell my parents anything about what I did. Maybe he forgot. I don't know, but I know that they would never forgive me for that. This is the end of my story, guys. Thank you for reading it, and never do what I did. Love, Sarah.